Hello and welcome to the weekly Dartcast. I'm Ben the Groper Roper and you're listening to my darting teammate Alex the Spectacle Wonder 131 Moss. 180!
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Weekly Dartscast. Alex Moss here, back as always with my co-host Dart Statistician, and now his team are also out of the Carabao Cup. It is Burton, DeWitt. How you doing?
Better than Middlesbrough right now. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing good, thank you. Another busy one for you guys this week. We've got 3 guests coming up for you, 2 players that are going to be involved in the World Series of Darts finals this weekend. You're going to hear in a moment from Damon Heta, the newest first-time PDC ranking title winner. You're also going to hear from a man who's been in the news this week, Harry Ward, who said he's going to hand in his tour card at the end of the year. And you're also going to hear from the ITV pundit and commentator Chris Mason towards the end. So lots coming up. But let's look back on some darts that we have seen over the last 5 days over in Germany. The Pro Tour back up and running again. We've seen 5 events and 2 titles going to the world number 3. Going Price the last couple of days. He's picked up 2 titles to finish top of the Autumn Series Order of Merit. Is this the Iceman getting back to his best, do you think?
It sure looks like it. And he was absolutely phenomenal on Wednesday. Wasn't as good on Tuesday, but still was pretty darn good winning the title. But he averaged over 100 in every single match, bar the final on the Wednesday. Averaged nearly 106 for the day. And the day before, didn't do too shabby, winning the title. Okay, got a little bit fortunate with Devin Peterson missing 4 championship darts, I should say, in the final. His lowest average for the day was 91.5 against Mensur Suljovic, which in fact was his lowest average for the entire week. If you go across 5 days and your worst performance in terms of average is 91.5, and you've won 2 titles, you've made a quarterfinal, lost another final, and reached the board final the other 2 days, that's not really that bad. He had just a phenomenal week, and it's what we expect from him. On the Tuesday, Dan Dawson set a remarkable, I think it was Dan Dawson, maybe it was Chris Murphy, but one of them said a remarkable statistic that this season, in every weekend/week of Pro Tour events, he has reached the final in at least one of the events, bar one weekend. That means he hasn't been that far off his best, at least on the Pro Tours this year. But this past week was the best we've seen from him in quite some time, since the end of last year when he was rivaling the best in the world. And that's why he topped the Autumn Series Order of Merit. It's why he's up to second now, ahead of Michael van Gerwen in average on the Players' Championship circuit so far this year, just a half point behind Peter Wright. This is the best, at the very least, since he was rivaling the top 2 in the world at the end of last year. Whether he's at that level, we have to hold out on, because what he was doing this past weekend on the Pro Tour, he was also doing on television at the end of last year. We haven't seen him play that consistently good on TV yet this year, but we haven't seen that much on TV, Premier League aside. If he can match that this upcoming weekend in the World Series finals, and as we get into all the events in October and November, then he's in great stead. But at the very least, he's playing close to where he was a year ago, and on the floor, maybe as good as he ever has.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement there. And just looking at the stats, really, I've got the Players' Championship averages across the whole of 2020, and Peter Wright's top of that list on the averages, 99.58. Second place, you've got Going Price there, 99.08. So it does show you that on the floor this year, he has been one of the top performers, and he's a man that knows how to win titles, and he knows how to win back-to-back titles as well. Not a lot of players can win a title and then do it all again the following day. They're still on that massive high, and to win back-to-back titles in this field of players as well, it does take some doing. But Going Price is one of those players. There's been a lot said about him over the last couple of months. We came back for the summer series in July, and he was either really good or sometimes really bad. I think there was one day he had I think it was 115 average in his first game, and then he must have dropped about 25, almost 30 points in the next game. So consistency wise, I suppose for a lot of these players, it is getting back into the groove. And we had Nathan Aspinall on the show last week, and he said that he felt that it was him and Going Price were the 2 players that were missing the crowd the most. And Going Price himself, he said in interviews during the Premier League during that restart that he felt that he wasn't really that fussed about it. He felt like it was a glorified Pro Tour with no crowd being there, and he was using it as practice for these events. And he's come to be vindicated, I suppose, by what he's been able to produce over the last 5 days, winning those titles on the last 2 days, some really big averages across the day. And you look to today, I think he averaged 104 over the whole day. And you look at the players that he's beaten along the way, the likes of James Wade and players that we know are among the top players, at least on the floor anyway, Jose De Sousa and Christoph Ratajski in the final. He's put in some excellent stuff. And now that we're coming into the business part of the season, and well, at least for the World Series finals this weekend and the European Tour next weekend, we are going to see some sort of crowd in there. And with Gerwyn Price playing at this level, it may just come at the right time for him to maybe add another TV title and another European Tour title to his collection.
If not more than that. Now, like the summer series, the autumn series, which of course was in summer technically, threw up a first-time ranking event winner, this time with Damon Heta, who of course won a non-ranking event last year, but this was his first ranking event, winning the third of the 5. Our question of the week, though, is, will he one day be the highest-ranked Australian darts player?
Yeah, this is one of our questions of the week, and the one that we're going to talk about on the show this week. And at the moment, we've still got the best part of, I think, 3 or 4 days left running on the poll on Twitter, but it's an overwhelming majority going with yes. 77% going with yes, that he is going to one day overhaul Kyle Anderson and then Simon Whitlock to become the number 1 ranked Australian in the PDC. No, getting with 23% at the moment. We've had one reply so far, a couple of replies actually on the tweet that we put out. John Thompson, he said the answer to that question depends on whether Corey Cadby can get his act together, but regardless of that, it's only a matter of time until it's not Whitlock. We've had another one as well come in saying that yes, unless Corey Cadby mounts a comeback, although Heta might have such a head start by then that he may become number 1 anyway. So Corey Cadby's name is coming into the conversation, but at this moment in time, he is a player that doesn't have a tour card. So I suppose we can't really talk too much with regards to his hopes of overhauling Simon Whitlock. But yes, I mean, for Damon Heta, I think it's going to take a little while. You look at the rankings at the moment, Simon Whitlock is well up there, still inside the top 20 in the world. I think Damon's he's broke into the top 100. I think he's around about 80 at the moment, but he's starting to qualify for these big events. He's missed out on the World Grand Prix, but he's qualified, I believe, for the Grand Slam because he's finished as the highest ranked player on the Autumn Series Order of Merit, not to qualify yet. So he's going to get some money from that at least, and you'll expect him to be in the World Championship at the end of the year. So for me, he's a player that's only going forwards, and he's a player with a lot of ability. I've rated him very highly for a long time. Of course, he won that World Series event last year, qualified for the World Championship, and then went through Q School, got through that. And I suppose early doors, he didn't quite get the runs the first 3 months of the season before it was cut off. We didn't see him go on any big runs at all, but he was putting in some top averages, and he said it himself that if he carried on playing to that level, it would only be a matter of time before he did get the rewards for that. And we say that about a lot of players, and I'm sure we'll talk about a few more of them on this show and going forward as well, that there's some players that are playing well but not quite getting the rub of the green, if you like. But Damon Heta, his rewards have come this week. His first game of the series, the Autumn Series, 102 average, lost out in the first round, but came back the following day, went all the way, and some really good stuff in there to beat Michael van Gerwen, Dimitri Vanderburgh, the reigning World Match Play champion, and Stephen Bunting in the semi-finals, and Joe Cullen in the final 8-4 in the end. So he's put in some really big performances there. The following day as well, getting to a quarter-final as well. I just spoke a moment ago about players winning a title and then not being able to back it up the following day, but he's put in again some big results, beating Christoph Ratajski, Dave Chisnell, Mervyn King, some top quality operators there. So for me, yeah, I do think one day we will see Damon Heta get to that top spot in terms of the Australian players in the order of merit, but I do think it is going to be a little while yet, considering there is that big gap between, well, the two in there at the minute. You've got Simon Whitlock and Kyle Anderson, who unfortunately we've not seen much of recently.
Yeah, and you mentioned how he just missed out on qualifying for the World Grand Prix, as did Simon Whitlock, by the way. First time in his professional career that Whitlock has missed out on that event, and wasn't that long ago. What was it, 3 years ago now? We lost in a deciding set to Daryl Gurney. But Whitlock won't be there, so there won't be any Australian there won't be anyone in Dublin, but in what would normally be in Dublin, now in Coventry, for the World Grand Prix. But the big reason why Damon Heta missed out was that, like Kyle Anderson, he had to miss the summer series. None of the Australian players who live overseas were able to make it for the summer series. He was able to get over for the autumn series, and it made a big difference. He won that title. He made the quarterfinal, like you mentioned. And other than on the final day, where maybe he was feeling a little bit of pressure, knowing that he needed to get a couple of results, most likely to get into the World Grand Prix, he went out with his worst performance of the week to Steve West in the first round. It's been one of his worst performances, in fact, as a professional. You can't have it every match, and he was phenomenal for the first 4 days of the weekend, or first 4 days of the week. And that's what got him into contention. It's what got him that first title. It's what got him now the overwhelming favorite, according to the poll, to one day be the top-ranked Australian. And as you said, Whitlock can't hold it forever. Whitlock is near the end of his career. He's admitted it himself. I don't think he's planning to hang up the Allen keys anytime soon. He's still going to keep sharpening those points. But he is on the downward spiral, and missing out on a major TV event for the first time won't sit well with him and won't give him confidence, even if he put in a valiant effort over the last 5 days to get into contention, playing or at least getting the best results he had gotten in quite some time, because he was well back, and he ended up getting himself to within 1,000 pounds or so of moving into the last provisional spot. Now, of course, he still has a chance if someone in the top 16 chooses not to show up, and we've seen Gary Anderson just pull out of a few events. So maybe there will be a way for Simon Whitlock to backdoor into it. But the fact that he has missed out and stands to miss out on some other events coming forward means that gap is going to narrow, even though Damon Heta didn't qualify. And Damon Heta has been one of the breakthrough players this year. I think it's just a matter of time before he becomes the top-ranked Australian. Even if Simon Whitlock gets back into these TV events, Damon Heta will be there as well. And Heta has a lot more left in the tank than Simon Whitlock does, at least if we look 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So I think the answer is yes, regardless how soon Corey Cadby gets back. Obviously, that is a wrinkle. If Corey Cadby gets back and hits the ground running again, it could change things. But I think Heta has that head start and will be in the World Match Play next year, will be in all the TV events next year, because he is that good. And that's what's going to see him rise into the top 32 and maybe even further.
Well, let's hear from the possible future Australian number one. Here's our chat with Damon Hill.
I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the newest first-time PDC ranking event winner, Damon Heta. Thank you very much for the time, Damon. How you doing?
Yeah, awesome, mate, awesome.
And we've got a lot to catch up on. We had you on in December last year, just before your World Championship debut. You win your first round game against Jose de Sousa 3-0. How did you find your debut on that Alexandra Palace stage?
Oh, that was next level. That's something that the experience was just insane, and to obviously win my first game. Oh yeah, I think I've just. For the second game, I think I was just still coming down off first win, to be honest. So, but I've got all that experience now, and I'm just looking forward to everything else.
And when we spoke to you, obviously we knew that you were hoping to come over to the UK. You were settling in here, and you were looking to go to Q School and win that tour card. Obviously, if you didn't go far enough in the World Championship, but you went out to Glen Durant in the next round. Did you go back home after that, or did you stay in the UK so you could settle in and get ready for Q School?
Yeah, mate. No, my plan was to stay in no matter what happened. So, and that's why I came over in November to give myself that preparation, because I know it would be a very, very hard task to come all this way just to be settled within like a small amount of time. So, my plan was obviously to kick on, stay on, play in as many just local comps or whatever comps were going, get that experience, playing players I don't know that are playing well. Obviously the plan was do the Q School. And if that didn't happen, I always just had the backup plan, and I was still going to kick on playing Challenge Tour and stuff. But, it counted my lucky stars that, I got the tour card, and things just, been a whirlwind since then.
Looking back at that Q School then, the second day you had a big run. You got to the final round. You just lost out in that final game, and you had a decent run on the first day as well. So how were you feeling after that second day, coming so close to winning that tour card outright, but you were very high up on that order of merit?
Yeah, I was a bit gutted that second day, because I was playing well, and to just die off near the end being super close. So I was a bit gutted, but to be fair, I was like, I really had to just shake that off, because I know there was another 2 days, and nothing was guaranteed. So I was going to rock up the next 2 days and just give it everything. And sure enough, the third day I even had I can't remember, but I had a few wins, and I think that was enough to put me over the line, but I still wasn't leaving anything to chance, and still rocking up the fourth day. And I just I think playing in the Australian leagues, having long days of darts, is like really prepared me for that Q school sort of scene. You're just there all day pretty much. Well, if you're lucky to, you're there all day. And so I've got Australian darts to thank.
So you get your tour card from the Order of Merit, and the first few months we saw some impressive performances from you, some big averages, a bit of bad luck, it's got to be said at times with the draws, but before the tour was shut down, how would you assess those first few months on the tour?
Those first months on the tour, playing in obviously what I did, it's really, I have to pretty much adapt and learn fast, because it's only a limited time to get to the 64 and stuff to keep your tour cards. So those first few months I was playing well, to be fair. I swear my game was lifted. But you're playing against players of that stature, and you've really just got to take your chances. And I probably didn't take as many as I should have. So I think that break that we've just had coming up into this one, it really settled me down, and I returned bigger and stronger and knew what I was in for.
And we had your good friend Kyle Anderson on the show a few months back, and he spoke to us about you and him travelling back to Australia when the pandemic really hit here in the UK. You were flying home. How were you feeling then? Was it just all about getting home, or not thinking about the darts at all?
Yeah, obviously, it was getting home, because the darts wasn't even going to go ahead. But as soon as I got home, it was nice, family, friends, and I just went back to work as well. I was lucky that I had work to keep that financials ticking over. And then once things looked like, I was always trying to keep in contact of when the darts are going to start, because it just felt like I was on a holiday coming back home, and then I'm like, I just really want to get back. I really want to just do what I can on the dart scene, because it was like a 2-year build up. And then, I'm back home again, so...
Yeah, it must have felt a little bit strange, and I suppose it was a long break, really, from the tour. 4 months we had. I know we had the at-home darts during that time, but in terms of the Pro Tour events, a 4-month break, the Summer Series comes around in July, and yourself and Carl both missing out on that. How close did you get to coming back to the UK, or was it always going to be a non-starter, given all the regulations at that time?
Yeah, the rules were really harsh on me with being in Australia. Australia was in like a really deep lockdown. You had to have this real special exemptions to fly, and I just couldn't. I couldn't rush any paperwork. And I really wanted to get back, because 5 tournaments, 5 pro tours. That to me, that's probably a really big deal. That could mean a few extra £100 just to miss out on, or and I would look back and go, and there's not much, but there wasn't anything that I could have done. And I was just watching and skewing back home, but looking back now, it was one way it could have been worth it. So.
I suppose in terms of events that you'd qualified for after the Summer Series, there wasn't really anything announced after that. It was just the World Match Play and the Premier League. So when did you get back over to the UK?
Yeah, so I've been back now about 7 weeks. As soon as I got my paperwork and all that, I was flying back. Within a week, as soon as I got my paperwork, because in the circumstances that we're in, and I knew that they obviously put darts on, but I didn't know when the next one was, and I didn't want to wait till the last minute and try and get back and stuff. So I just got back as quick as I can, and that way I know if there's a tournament on, I can be here and I can be there. So
So what was it like then? You're in Germany at the moment. We've just finished up the Autumn Series, and I know it's been a great week for you, winning a title. But what was it like turning up to Germany, turning up to the hotel to play in these events, first events for you on the PDC circuit for 6 months?
Yeah, it was a bit. I felt really, really comfortable. Like I think in myself, I played a lot of online. In the meantime, in the break and stuff, and I played some really good players on there, and I think I learned a little bit from it. And I didn't pick up bad habits, because I could tell that that's something that could have been done. But as soon as I tried to do a lot of practice when I got back here with people to play in person, because I was playing a lot online. But I just felt really comfortable, and because I was playing well online, I came in with heaps of confidence of just going, I can smash anybody on my day as well. So I knew that I was going to play well.
Let's look at that run on Sunday then. Some big wins on your way to picking up the title. None bigger than, of course, beating the world number one Michael van Gerwen along the way. You also put out the recently crowned world match play champion Dimitri Vanderburgh. So when you're going through these rounds, beating these top quality players, did you start to feel like this was maybe your time and that title was coming?
Well, no, I wasn't even looking that far in the draws. I wasn't even thinking about going like all the way to the final. I literally was just thinking about one game at a time, because I drew first game was Scott Waits, and I've just gone, here we go. This is my revenge for him beating me in the UK Open. And that's after that game, I was like, yep, just bring on the next one. And I really didn't know who I had. Until my wife told me after every game, because I didn't really want to know. And yeah, beating them guys, it might not have been like a really high averages, but all I did was take it leg by leg, keep applying pressure, and just not even look at the finish line, because sometimes you just stuff it up if you're doing sort of that thing.
And you beat Joe Cullen in the final to get that first title, and the interviews afterwards, you felt like it was only a matter of time before that first title was coming. But what did it feel like when that double goes in and you are a PDC ranking event winner for the first time? Yeah,
no, it's massive, mate, because you could be at any stage of the game until that last doubles hit. You could lose it straight away, and it could go straight to your head. So I just kept real focused, and as soon as that went in, it was just a big relief off your shoulders. You know what I mean? It's it was amazing. And then it's like a domino effect, everything that's going to come after it as well. So it pushes me up the rankings a bit. So you just gain more confidence, and if you can just keep getting through those, because the first game's the hardest, I think most players would say, and now I just feel that keep getting through them first rounds and second, and everything else will come along with it. So I think if I just keep this steady motion going, I think I can move up a bit faster.
And we've got to ask you about the nickname as well. You're the second player nicknamed the Heat to win a PDC ranking title after Dennis Ovens. But from your end, where did the nickname come from?
Well, it's literally just my last name with the letters changed around. But there was I've been through so many nights just with friends and stuff. It's coming up with silly names and nothing really. Just and I know it's Dennis Ovens, and picking like a walk-on song, and I know, and I didn't want to pick the same, so it's been, it's always comes up in conversation with mates and stuff. So, but like I think it just suits, and plus I work on roofs, metal roofs, in 40-degree heats and stuff. So it's sort of a bit of a irony.
Fair enough. What about the worst nicknames then? You said you were coming up with some different ones. What are the ones that you look back on and think, wow, I'm happy I didn't use that one?
I don't know. I had the Crusader when I first come on the scenes, and it was like, how the hell did I just pick that? I don't even know. That was, I think it just went with a song, and the Crusaders is a rugby team as well, so
Just a couple then to finish up with, and looking ahead, obviously you're off to Austria this weekend for the World Series finals. It's going to be the first event with a crowd since March. You're up against Ian White on that Friday night. How much are you looking forward to playing in that event, and obviously seeing all the fans there as well?
Oh yeah, I'm just so grateful just that I've been invited to play, and I'm just going to take this opportunity, and I'm just going to hold it with both hands, just give it my all out there, mate. So we're really looking forward to there. Last time I was on stage, what was that? At the Ali Pally. So just heaps looking forward, and I just can't wait.
And it's been a big few days for you, of course, winning your first PDC ranking title, but also the announcement that's come out this week as well. You've signed with Harrows. How did that come about, and how much do you think it will help having a big manufacturer like them on board with you now?
Oh yeah, tenfold. I don't have to. It's just another weight off your shoulders, isn't it? I did sign up with them a little back. I think it was like March, but didn't really, because of all the COVID. It seemed like there was no point of doing announcements and stuff like that. So it's all good that it's happened now after such a after a solid week of darts. Happy with that. The performance, I was like, let's get it out there, and I've just got my own dart coming out, and shirt design, so it's just like a kid in a candy shop, you know what I mean, and they're just all keen as a bean now, happy.
Happy days. And I suppose this last one really, it might be a hard one to answer really, but the World Cup, it's not that far away, and we've got Simon and Gaal, they're the top two ranked at the moment, but we haven't seen Gaal on the tour for a little while now. I know he was originally scheduled to play this weekend in Austria with you, but does he plan on playing in the World Cup? Have you heard anything his end about if he's going to partner with Simon?
Yeah, look, I obviously I heard ages ago that they had Gaal and Simon in as the World Cup. Whether that's still confirmed or not, I'm not too sure. And I think he's coming back, and then he's not. I couldn't comment on that, mate. So yeah, I think that's a question for him. But but what will be if I was to wear the green and gold shirt, mate. I'll put everything into it. That's for sure, and wear it with pride.
Excellent. Well, Damon, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you. Really appreciate you taking out some time to have a chat with us, and wish you all the best for this weekend in Austria, and well done again on winning your first ranking title at the weekend as well.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Damon for joining us. Now let's get on to some news that's
come out this week, and with regards to one of the players on the PDC tour, who you're going to hear from in a moment as well. And surprising news really for a lot of people this week, that Harry Ward, he's going to hand in his tour card at the end of this year. Could we see this happen more often among lower ranked players?
So it used to happen quite a bit at the end of any given season since they started the tour cards back in 2011. In those first 5 or 6 years, you would normally see anywhere from one to a few of the players hand it in. Some people never even used their tour card to begin with and just handed it in after a year. Some never used it and kept it for 2 full years without ever using it. But we won't go into that. So it used to be something that was fairly common. This is a bit different because the prize money is such now that you can be the 70th, 75th best player in the world and still make a decent living, at least supplementing a full or part-time job at it, which was not the case when you go back to the beginning of the tour card era. Even the top 64, many of those players were not making a living. You really had to go to the top 32. Now, Harry Ward, sure, he's down the rankings, but he gets to the World Championships most year. He's able to qualify for some TV events. That's going to bring in some good money, and that's a tough thing to give up. But it also is tough to get to that position to begin with, where even at that ranking, you're able to make a good living. And it requires dedication, it requires sacrifice. And credit to him for realizing that's not the life he wants to live, at least right now. You don't want to put that stress on you to have to travel the world, knowing that your livelihood depends on it if your heart isn't there. It takes a lot to give up a tour card. I don't think we'll see more people, or that many more people, do what Harry Ward has done. We might see someone who really is far down the rankings and not getting results after 1 year, deciding it's not worth putting in the travel and the expense to travel if they're losing money at it. That I could see happen. But a player like Harry Ward, it's going to take a unique situation because he's very talented and he is able to make a living at this. It's just not where his heart is, and it's not where his head is. Credit to him for having the confidence to decide that this is what's best for him. But I don't think we'll see more people in that situation, at least anytime soon, because he's giving up a lot of money and a lot of potential rewards.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I suppose this week we had a little bit of an inkling that this was going to happen because we got in touch with Harry's manager at MDA Promotions over the weekend when we saw that he qualified for the World Series finals this weekend, and said about getting him on, and they said, yeah, absolutely fine to get him on. And a couple of days later, the day before this announcement came out, he was saying that, just to let you know, he's probably going to hand in his tour card at the end of the year. And my initial reaction was, oh, why is that? And he said that he's not enjoying the darts anymore. And I suppose it is a hard sport. You know, it's not for everyone, and he's had a lot of highs, and you're going to hear from him in a moment as well about talking through the decision and talking about last year. Because remember, we had him on the show just after he won that PDC ranking title around about May last year time, and what the doors that opened after that, qualifying for Mineheads, the World Championship as well, and one of the great games of the first round, that back and forth game with Madars Razma that he came back and won 3-2. So he's had some great times on that stage, but he said that he's come to find out really over the last 6 months and come to the decision that darts isn't for him, being a professional. And he's had a close look at Daryl Gurney, getting up to as high as world number 3, and seeing the sacrifices that you have to put in to get to that top level. And he just said that it wasn't for him. And you got to say, as you said, full respect to him for coming to that decision. And you can't certainly rule out him maybe coming back in the future. He's only just turned 23 a couple of months ago, so there's still a lot of time for him possibly to make a comeback. But could we see it happen more in the future? Well, he's joined a great list of players really to drop their tour card. You think Phil Taylor 3 years ago, Raymond van Barneveld last year, but in terms of players that aren't retiring, it's not been very often over the last couple of years that it's happened. It's going to depend really, and we've not brought up the virus on this episode yet, but it's got to be a factor, hasn't it? Whether things get back to normal. I know the PDC are doing a fantastic job in getting these events on. In terms of darts as a sport, it is the PDC or nothing at the moment, really. I suppose really it's going to be a case of can they get these events on more regularly and what we're used to seeing before the virus, and that's going to be the big question going forward. And you think of the players that are lower ranked, like Harry Ward. I know he's just inside that top 64 at the moment, so he was looking all right to keep that tour card and be in that top 64 at the end of the year. But you think of players lower down that maybe haven't had a great first year, and you think of the money situation, paying for the travel, paying for all the expenses, and maybe not getting the rewards and not picking up the prize money. Then you look at it at the end of the year and you think, given the current climate and what we're in, and maybe it is better to have more of a steady job away from the darts and have that steady income that you guarantee to get in each month. So it is going to be an interesting one. I know Harry's not come to that decision for financial reasons. It's just himself personally doesn't feel like he's got it in him really to push to become that professional and get to the top level of the game. But in terms of other reasons, perhaps we could see it. I suppose we're going to see over the next few months, and when we do get to the end of the year, and when the plans come out for next year, and hopefully when we're getting through this pandemic at the moment and things are starting to get back to more normality, we'll see whether that is the case for some other players lower down as well.
Yes, and as you mentioned, we'll hear from Harry, and we'll in fact hear from him now as he spoke to Alex about his decision and about darts. So here's Harry Ward.
I'm delighted to say I'm joined by a former PDC ranking event winner, Harry Ward. Thank you very much for the time, Harry. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. All good. Autumn series is finished now, so just looking forward to Friday.
Yeah, lots coming up for you, and we asked your manager Matt Ward about getting you back on the show at the weekend. Obviously, we saw you qualify for the World Series finals this weekend, and he gave us the heads up as well about your decision that you and your management put out on Tuesday morning, that you're going to be handing in your tour card at the end of this year. Obviously, it was a decision which you've put a lot of thought into, but when did you come to the decision that you wanted to do that?
I've said it a few times, probably 6 months ago. It's not a rash decision. It may seem that to some people, but it's not. And I feel it's the right decision for me.
So then you come to Germany over the weekend. You come through that World Series qualifier to book your spot in the World Series finals on TV this weekend. Did that change your mind at all, or you were going to stick with your decision whatever happened?
This actually made me realise that, I know my mind isn't right to be a dart player, because I've qualified for a TV event now on Friday. I've had a couple of good games, and I got very lucky in the last game with Chris Dobie, missing a lot of doubles in a couple of legs, and both of our averages being quite low for the standard we normally play at. As I say, when I qualified, I wasn't actually as excited as I should have been, and me and Matt saw that, and we sort of realised then that my mind's just not right. My mind is right outside of darts, but for darts, I'm just not enjoying the game, and I just don't think I will either, because I've not been enjoying practice or anything like that. So it's not a decision that's come across because I'm unhappy. I'm happy, but just that when I qualified and seeing it wasn't actually that much of an excitement, it actually helped me come to this decision a bit more.
And it's obviously been a strange year, hasn't it, for darts, for everyone, really. I mean, we've had that long break with the tour from March to July with nothing, and then I suppose for a lot of the players from July to September didn't really have anything going on. But as you mentioned earlier, it's been a decision that you've had in your mind for 6 months or so now, so you've had a lot of time really to reflect and think about it without having that tour to play on each week.
Yeah, obviously the pandemic, the coronavirus has, it didn't help. It's bound to not help. There's a lot of players, obviously not feel as strongly as me as I do for giving the game up as such, but it's been hard the last few months. I don't think a lot of people have been practicing as much because you sort of have nothing to practice for. It's like I always see it as like a boxer doing a training camp for no fight. It's sort of not worth the time, and I've realised during this time that I enjoy not practicing. I'll play darts socially with my friends, but the hardcore practice as such you'd have to do to be at the top of the game is something I don't see myself doing, and I don't like doing things half-heartedly. So that's why I've made this decision. But yeah, as I say, the virus has affected darts. Not being able to play in front of crowds. The match play was strange. The Premier League was strange. But darts is still will flourish. Definitely, it's a sport on the up. I think there's a lot of youngsters coming through, and hopefully this time next year we'll be back to a bit of normality in the darts for all the players that will carry on.
Fingers crossed. Well, let's look back then, because we last had you on the show just a few days after you won your first PDC senior title, May of last year on the floor. What was it like turning up to events shortly after that, having won a title and turning up to the events as a winner?
The mindset changes totally. I didn't think I'd win a title in that year. I didn't think my game was good enough. Obviously, on the day, I didn't play amazingly all day. Like you see, Gerwin Price won today with averages of 100 in it was every game. But after I won that, I was going into tournaments sort of expecting more when I shouldn't have really, and my game went a bit downhill from there. But I still enjoyed last year. This year's been so different, but I'll never forget that day. Obviously, winning the PDC title at such a young age, it was unbelievable, and that will obviously live with me forever.
Definitely, and that win, it opened up a lot of doors for you last year. You qualified for the Players' Championship finals in Minehead, and of course the biggest one of them all, the World Championship at Ali Pali. How did it feel turning up to Ali Pali and playing on that stage for the first time last year?
Yeah, it was another, as I say about the title, it's something I'll never forget. Just to go on that stage, and the first game I played, coming from behind and the crowd were behind me, and obviously that feeling was amazing. Very, very good. And even the Players' Championship finals, playing in them sorts of events where people can watch you and your name gets out there, it was really good last year. Even though for me, at the back end of last year, I sort of wasn't playing as well. But again, the World Championships is the big one, and to say I've played there on that stage is an achievement in itself. So, I'm going to play the rest of this year. You never know, I might be able to play there again. But it sounds bad even thinking of the Worlds. I wouldn't be bothered if I didn't qualify, which sounds terrible. I know that, but it's just not right in it. And I'll still watch it. I think watching the Worlds is something else. It's always good every year. There's always shocks. There's always great darts thrown. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the Worlds whether I'm in it or not.
Definitely, and that's good too. Obviously, you've touched on there that you've maybe not got the desire to want to be a professional and put in all the practice, but it sounds like that you're still a big fan of the darts, and that love's still there for you watching the game and following the sport still.
Yeah, of course. Darts has been a part of my life for like 10 years now. My dad's always been a big fan, and my family are big darts fans. If we ever, not so much this year, but if we ever have like a family gathering, like a barbecue on the back garden, we'll always get the dartboard out and have a good few games outside. We all love darts. We all watch darts, and I've said to Matt, next year, providing it's back to normal, you do like the weekends in Barnsley. I'd like a few weekends just to come up and watch and support the lads I get on with really well, and I'll never lose touch of the game, but I just know all it is I know that I don't want to be a professional, so I'm just I've made this decision, and I feel like it's best for me. But obviously, yeah, I'll always be a darts fan.
The decision when it came out, obviously in public on Tuesday, a lot of surprise, but there's been a lot of nice comments, really, a lot of people supporting you for the decision and the maturity that you've shown for your young years to come to that decision. But what's it been like the last couple of days then? Because the decision you've made, it's come out, but you're still playing it in tournaments. You're still over in Germany. You played yesterday, you played today. How's it felt turning up and playing in the events now with the decision out there?
I felt like there's a bit of weight lifted off my shoulders, because I don't want people to watch my games and think, he should be playing better than that. Because I'll be honest, my standard of darts at the minute isn't fantastic. But that's something I'm not really upset about. I know how much I've practiced. I don't deserve to be beating people that have put the effort in. I mean, I can, because I know I've always got a good game in me. But the reception I got on the internet was fantastic. I'm not one for wanting attention. I knew I'd get attention. As soon as I was with Matt as he put the statement out, and he said, "Just turn your phone off," because obviously I knew I'd get the attention. I'm not that sort of person. I hate attention. I like to keep myself to myself and keep my head down. But obviously I've kept an eye on it, and I appreciate every message I've had, every comment, every like. It's really, really shown that there's a lot of good people out there, and it's helped me get through a tough decision.
Definitely. And what about the reaction from your fellow tour card holders? I mean, there's pretty much all of them are there in Germany with you at the moment. Have any of the players come up to you, maybe players that you don't often speak to or players that you do speak to, that have maybe said anything to you? Yeah,
there's been a mixed bag. I appreciate any words I've had off anyone, because it's not easy, but it's my decision. I've had a few people, come up and be like, "Well, what are you doing?" And I've not enjoyed that, because it's my choice, and it's not easy, but I feel like it's best for me. Even a few comments online, slating me, I'm like, it's annoying, because you can't knock a lad for trying to be happy. But yeah, most of the talk holders, even a few have said, "Are you okay?" Asking if I'm down or anything. I'm not down. I'm a happy lad, and it's just a decision that I feel is going to better my life. So, as I said, even the reception online and all the other players has been made. The majority of it's been nice, yeah.
Just a couple really to finish. We touched on you're in a great stable with MDA Promotions, the likes of Daryl Gurney, Jamie Hughes, a few others, and obviously your manager Matt Ward. Great camaraderie on the tour, life on the road. But what are you going to miss most about playing on the tour, do you think, and what are you going to not miss about playing on it?
The thing I miss the most is the banter with like the close lads in MDA. Like Yozza. I share with Jamie Hughes, and we always have a cracking laugh. We've always got on, because we're both two laid-back characters that just accept it as it is, sort of thing. Daryl, I practice with Daryl every Pro Tour event, for a good couple of hours before we play. I'll miss that. It's always a laugh. But the one thing I won't miss is being away. Like this week, it's been so long and draining that my performances have got worse and worse each day, which I think quite a few people's have, apart from some exceptions like Gerwin Price and Devin Peterson, who's been amazing the last couple of days. But I just won't miss, when I'm not really a sore loser, but when I lose, I come back in my hotel room and then I'm bored, and it's just one of them things. But yeah, the most thing I will miss is the banter with all the MDA lads and definitely Matt Ward.
And just lastly then, a word on this weekend. You've qualified for the World Series finals in Austria. The first game up on Friday night, and it's the first game, the first session we're going to see with a crowd backing for PDC events, which is going to be nice to see. How are you feeling about heading to Austria then for Friday night and getting to play on that big stage again?
Oh, I can't wait. But the only bonus about this weekend is I literally have nothing to lose. I don't want that to sound bad, but I've obviously told people how I feel, and I'm just going to go up there and enjoy it. Hopefully my darts will be steady enough to win a few legs, maybe snatch a win the first game. But either way, playing in front of them crowds is such a good feeling. But it's I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm not expecting anything, so nothing to lose, and be nice to play in front of a crowd again.
Well, Harry, it's always been a pleasure to chat to you. Really appreciate you taking out some time to have a chat with us. Wish you all the best for this weekend and for the rest of the year, and for the rest of the future as well.
Oh, thank you very much. No problem at all.
Thanks to Harry for joining us this week. Now, moving on, the World Series. Can we call it the finals? I guess we have to. The World Series finals will be this weekend in Austria, even though there was no World Series series this year. And it will be the first PDC event to go forward with a crowd since the pause in March. What is the big draw to you to tune in this weekend to the action?
Well, we spoke a little bit about what's coming up over the next 4 or 5 weeks from the PDC last week, and I personally picked this event as the one that I was most looking forward to. And one of the big things was because we're going to see that crowd there, and it is going to be the first televised event with the crowd. And spoke last week, and I know a lot of people didn't agree with me. They preferred to go with the autumn series when you've got all the tour card holders, well, pretty much all the tour card holders playing, and you get to see a lot more games during the 5 days compared to this one. But for me, and I said it last week, that the crowd is a big part of the darts. It's part of that spectacle, whether it's being in the crowd yourself or watching it from TV. A lot of it, what draws you in is that atmosphere that we have, and we don't quite know what it's going to be like this weekend. We do know that it's a limited crowd. I did have an email from PDC Europe. I think it might come to me this today, actually, when we're recording on this Wednesday, and it was in German, so I didn't quite understand it. But I did see the figure 1,500 in there, so I'm not quite sure whether that's the limit on people that they can have in the venue this weekend. But whether it's 1,500, whether it's more, whether it's less, we're going to get that more authentic atmosphere, the real atmosphere, if you like. And for me, that is why I'm looking forward to this event. And I suppose we've got to talk about the players and the draw. It's thrown up some really tasty ties, some great first round games, and some possible really exciting second round games. And you've got to look right at the top of that draw. Glenn Durant against Dimitri Vanderburgh, repeat of that World Match Play semi-final from a couple of months ago. And the winner of that game plays Michael van Gerwen. And you think these first couple of rounds, a race to 6 legs, very short race in terms of TV darts. They're going to be some exciting games. Krzysztof Ratajski against Mensur Suljovic. I know a few people I've seen on Twitter saying that this is kind of like Krzysztof Ratajski. He's took up the baton, if you like, for players from that sort of neck of the woods around Europe from Mensur, what he was able to achieve the last couple of years. So that'll be an interesting game. Some other good ones in there. I think Ian White, Damon Heta will be a good one. Cody Harris, Dave Chisnell, and Vincent Vanderburg, Joe Cullen. And then you look forward to what the potential second round games could be, and then going forward to that final day. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this weekend. And I've got to say as well, you can hear from Chris Mason in a little bit as well, but we didn't touch on it in our interview. But he did say when we were talking off there that I know ITV's coverage here in the UK, that's starting during the session. So I think they're going to miss the first couple of games on the Friday and the Saturday, I believe. I'm not quite sure about the Sunday because they're showing the Tour de France highlights. But I believe Chris was saying that all the games that they miss on the live broadcast, they're going to show them at the end of the session in full replay. So that's good news as well. You're not going to miss a game.
Yes, that is good news. Obviously, we'd rather be able to watch it live. I think I'll be able to because I can watch everything on the PDC website since I'm not in the UK or the Netherlands where they block the TV events. So it doesn't affect me, or hopefully it doesn't affect me, but it's good that other people get to watch it. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some, as you mentioned, some fantastic first round ties. And with the short format, that makes those second round ties really up for grabs. And maybe that potential Michael van Gerwen and Glenn Durant match, if Durant gets past Dimitri in the first round, has lost a little bit of luster in one way because Michael van Gerwen was able to finally get a win over Glenn Durant this past week in the autumn series. But he's still way behind in the all-time series. And for Glenn Durant, he's going to want to show who of the 3-time world champs is the man to beat. He wants to get that mantle back by beating the world number one, assuming he heads past Dimitri Vanderburgh. Dimitri Vanderburgh wants to obviously prove that his win in the World Match Play was no fluke. Whoever gets through that top little part of the draw, meet the world number one, will make up for a fantastic second round match. But I'll focus on a couple other matches. One that you mentioned, one that you didn't. And they involved the only 2 non-tour card holders in the field. One, you mentioned Cody Harris going against Dave Chisnell. Cody Harris, one of the best players who's never been able to win a tour card. He's come close a couple of times, but he is a very good talent. And once he finally gets that breakthrough in Q School or on the Challenge Tour to win a tour card, I think he'll hold his own, and I think he'll be a very steady professional. It just hasn't happened for him yet. Kind of like it didn't happen for Krzysztof Ratajski in Q School. And once he got that opportunity on the Pro Tour, he piled on and is now in the top 16 in the world. I don't know if Cody Harris is top 16 good, but he is definitely at the very least tour card good. And has a winnable match against Dave Chisnell. And then obviously the other non-tour card holder, Fallon Sherrick. We've talked a lot about her. Everyone, even people outside of darts, has talked a lot about her. And she has, in the limited time we've seen her in the PDC, has shown that she belongs. Even though she didn't perform at her best at Q School, she did on TV, winning 2 matches at the World Championship, pushing Chris Dobie in the match she lost, and drawing against the person who ended up topping the Premier League in Glen Durant. This will be the first time we get to see her in about 7 months, but she's playing a very good player in the Canadian Jeff Smith. I'm looking forward to that match. I'm looking forward to Cody Harris's match, because those 2 players we haven't got to see in a long time, and it'll be interesting to see if they're as good as they've shown in the past.
Now, before we move on to our final guest on this week's show, Chris Mason, just a word on our sponsors, Low Six. They are presenting this show, of course, our good friends at Low Six, sports betting reborn. And don't forget, you can download the Low Six app, make your picks on the upcoming darts matches. This weekend, of course, the World Series finals. Should be some contests on there, and there's some cash prizes up for grabs. Whoever does the best in the picks could potentially win some cash prizes, and there's always some free-to-play contests on there as well. So if you don't fancy paying any money towards it, you can play in the free contest as well. And let's get into some of our picks then, and we're going to go through the top bracket of the first round draw, if you like. So the first 4 games on that list, we've got Glen Durant, Dimitri Vanderburgh, Jeff Smith, Fallon Sherrock, Christoph Ratajski, Mensah Simon Whitlock, Steve Beaton. Burton, give me your picks for all 4 of those games.
I mean, there's really no easy match across the night, and those 3, so those 4 matches are no exception. Durant, what is to say that hasn't been said, but Dimitri Vanderburgh, okay, he didn't have the best autumn series after his match play triumph, but he's a major winner now. And this will be the first time he's been on TV since lifting that trophy. And he's a type of player, he's always been this type of player, who loves playing on the big stage and loves the pressure of playing on the big stage. He was able to defend his World Championship quarterfinal money this past year, showing that the pressure doesn't get to him. He will never have had more pressure than he will in this match, going against his stablemate, but also going in for the first time being introduced as a major champion. There will be all the pressure on Dimitri Vanderburgh and really none on Glen Durant, but I don't think that will affect him. And I think Dimitri Vanderburgh will play at his best and get the win 6-3. Next match, Jeff Smith, Fallon Sherrock. Ooh, that's a tough one. Jeff Smith, I think, we were talking about pressure. I think the pressure, to some extent, got to him this past week in the autumn series, because he was trying to get into the Grand Prix and just didn't get to his best. I don't think he'll have that much pressure on him in this match, even though the crowd will obviously be behind Fallon Sherrock. I think Jeff Smith is used to the crowd being behind his opponent, being the overseas player in most of his matches, getting to Lakeside final and semifinal as the overseas player without the crowd behind him. I think he'll be able to get it done 6-4. Ratajski Silovic, you mentioned this one earlier. Silovic is trying to keep his crown as the Eastern European king of darts, even though Ratajski's now ranked ahead of him. But they're very close to each other in the rankings. They're very close to each other in skill. They're very close to each other just in terms of how they play the game, in terms of just smart, consistent, brilliant at times, and their timing is fantastic. I think Silovic, though, has a little bit more experience, especially on TV, so I'll go 6-5 to the Austrian. And then Whitlock Beaton, it's a big match for both of them, who won't be in the World Grand Prix. Their last televised, possibly the last time they'll be on TV until the Players' Championship final. I think Whitlock's playing that a little bit better than Beaton right now. Even though Beaton was able to come through the qualifiers for here, I'll go 6-3 to Whitlock.
Well, I'll try and go a little different to you then on a couple of them. First game, Glen Durant, Dimitri Vanderburgh, and it is probably one of the hardest games to call in that first round. A nightmare draw for both of the players, not just, as you mentioned, because they're in the same stable under Mac Elkin, but obviously they had that fantastic game in the World Match Play, as I mentioned a couple of months ago, with Dimitri coming through and going on to lift the title. And we spoke to Glenn on this show. He said about that game was one of his hardest games to take, that defeat. And I think he's going to get a little bit of revenge. I think the carrot of potentially going up against Michael van Gerwen on that big stage, and you think of the comments that Michael came out with when he won one of his 5 events on the autumn series that took place over the last week. He said that if he plays at his top level, Glen Durant will never beat him. So some fighting talk from the world number one. So I'm really hoping that we see Glen Durant come through that, and we get to see that clash between Glen and Michael on the stage again. So I'll go Glen to come through that first game. Again, I'll go the opposite in the second game as well then. Fallon Sherrock, I know this is the first time we've seen her on that big stage for a long time, and I suppose one of the hardest games that she's going to have for a long time. I know she had some tough competition in that Modus series that seemed to go on for around about 6 months or so. So she played a lot of games in that online, but in terms of in-person darts and on that stage, first one in a little while. But I'm going to back her to come through. I know Jeff's not been in the best of form recently, so I'll go Fallon second game. Third game, I'll carry on the trend. Then I'll go with Krzysztof Ratajski to take this one. I think it is going to be a real tight game, and Mensah's been playing some good stuff recently. Got to a final. Krzysztof, of course, got to a final as well in the past week. So both players have had some good runs in the last week or so. But I'll go the opposite, and like you, I think it will go all the way to that 11th leg. But I think Krzysztof, I'm going to say he's going to win the ball, and he'll hold in 12 darts to come through. And then final game, I'm going to go with Steve Beaton to come through that final game. And if you guys want to go up against us, of course, on the Low Six app, there should be some contests over the weekend. Download it in your app store. A few regulations, of course. You must be 18 years of age or older, live in the UK. T&Cs apply. Please don't forget to gamble responsibly. BeGambleAware.org if you want to find out more about that. And best of luck to everyone who's going to play along.
Yes, indeed. At least one of us will get half of them right, which is probably a first for us. But we'll go speak of people who don't always get it right, but sometimes do, probably more often than we do. We'll go on to our third guest of the week, and that is with the ITV pundit, Chris Mason.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the ITV pundit and commentator, Chris Mason. Thanks for joining us again, Chris. How are you doing?
Absolute pleasure, mate. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Thanks, Phil.
Good to hear. Well, I was looking back. We last had you on the show back in April. Feels like a long time ago now, early on into the lockdown here in the UK. How did you find the whole lockdown?
Yeah, it was, obviously my main interest is darts. So obviously I felt sorry for the players, especially the ones that had made sort of such big strides early on and had good world championships, and someone especially like Peter Wright, won his first world title, and then everything was put on the back burner. But it's slowly but surely getting back to some sort of normality. I think it'll be a while before it will be the new normal. But we've got a bit of darts, the autumn series, and of course we're down to the final four of the Premier League now, and then obviously the World Series is right on us.
Just want to touch on some darts that we have been able to see over the last couple of months, and the PDC came back over after that 4-month break. We had the Pro Tour followed by the World Match Play behind closed doors in Milton Keynes. What did you make of the World Match Play?
Yeah, I thought Sky did a great job of it, to be honest. Whoever was the director shot it very well, so you didn't feel obviously the crowd noise and the actual real atmosphere wasn't there, but I thought they did a great job. It was a thoroughly enjoyable tournament. Dimitri winning his first major after winning obviously a couple of back-to-back World Youth titles, and I thought he played very well. I thought he was the best player there that week.
Obviously, you were part of the ITV team that did the UK Open a couple of years ago, which ended up being virtually behind closed doors. What's it like as a player turning up to these events that you used to have in big crowds and at these big venues and having to play behind closed doors? I know they still had the crowd noise being pumped through, but what's that like as a player?
As a player, I wouldn't know, because obviously it never really happened for me as a player, but I don't know. It's sort of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Obviously, the atmosphere isn't there, and like in football, they call it the 12th man, and it could be the fourth dart to be described in darts. But I think when you have a look at the Pro Tours, which obviously are played behind closed doors, you often see some of the higher stats. Not all the time, but across the board, players do perform better in perfect conditions, and of course, without having, although the crowd can be advantaged, as we've seen over the years, the crowd have played their part in quite a few results. So, in some ways it can work for certain players. It was interesting really with the match play, because we've seen Dimitri, unquestionably play his best start on TV with a crowd, and he's tended to struggle on the Pro Tours. However, I think that the time spent with Peter Wright, and Peter Wright sort of, helping him hone his craft, he just seemed to settle in almost instantly and produce his best start. So I think, for some players, it can work massively in their favours. I expected someone like Gerwyn Price to find it a little better, because obviously, as we know, he gets a fair bit of abuse, but it didn't quite it didn't quite work out for him. I think he's one of the players that has suffered with the lack of darts. I think because he's so new and still improving, I think he missed out on obviously all playing the Pro Tours and the Euro Tours and all those sort of things. So, it just works out perfectly for Dimitri, having spent all those months practicing with Peter Wright. So, yeah, it's disappointing for the fans ultimately, because the match play is such a big event. Up in Blackpool in the beautiful winter gardens, and it is a great fans' favourite event and a favourite of the players, because it is a different type of crowd than pretty much you get everywhere else. They're a little bit more, they're more dart fans rather than going out for a good night out.
And there's been a lot of talk about Michael van Gogh in the last few weeks. Obviously, during the Premier League restart, he missed out on the playoffs for the first time ever. Lots of different theories doing the rounds about his darts, the lack of crowd, the improvement in the rest of the competition in the field. But can you put your finger on what went wrong with Michael in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a technical issue with him. I'm not sure it's down to the darts, because those darts he used to win the UK Open, and I think he averaged over 105 for the tournament, and in my opinion, one of the toughest draws ever to win it. He had an awful draw, but found a way to win it and produced some quality darts. But I think whether it's been the lack of practice, I think there's a few technical issues which in recent weeks look a little bit better. And of course, he has changed yet again. He was using some black darts recently, which, again, they've worked on Winmore, a great company in terms of making small adjustments. But, if he doesn't have the confidence in his equipment, then it's always going to be very, very tough for him. But, it's not, you don't write them off as my job as a pundit is to have an opinion. And I base my opinion on what I see. He's far from, he's a long way off being finished. He's still going to win lots more titles. There's no doubt about that. But, I think you touched on a good point. I think if his game is not, if he's not averaging those 110s, 112s, 115s, there's a lot of players behind him that can average 105s, and that's enough. That's enough to beat pretty much any performance out there. So I think it's a combination of many things, the lack of competitive games for him, and the fact that there's a lot of good players around who maybe are not as scared of him as they used to be.
And on the flip side, Glenn Durant becoming only the third player to finish top of the Premier League, and another debutant, Nathan Aspinall, making the playoffs too. We've also got Peter Wright and Gary Anderson in there. I know it's still a little while away. We've got a few more events to go before the playoffs, but how do you see them playing out?
Yeah, I mean, they're both proven winners, aren't they? So there's no, the whole four of the lineup there, they're all proven winners. So it's obviously a shock not to see Michael there, but if you consider everything involved with the new manufacturer, the fact that he's not been playing anywhere near his best and his lack of, competitive darts, it's still a little bit of a shock, but, and again, no crowd and everything else, it's not massive, just sort of one of those things. But I think the lineup, the final four are gonna give us a great end to a great tournament. The Premier League finals night is always a special occasion, and let's just hope there can be some crowd in at the O2 if that's where it ends up being played, because it's always it's a great atmosphere, and it's a great end to a bit of a slog.
Let's touch on this weekend then, and we're going to see you back on our screens for ITV for the World Series finals. We had Stuart Pike on the show a few weeks ago, and he said that the ITV team, you won't be heading out to Austria this weekend. Did you sense that was what was going to happen given what's going on at the moment?
Well, I was a little shocked that we weren't going out there, but again, totally understandable. They have to, what they have to protect the staff and everything else. But if they'd have asked me, do I want to go, I would have 100% gone. But sadly, we'll be doing it from a studio. There will be a crowd there, which is going to be great, and hopefully it doesn't. We're just part of the package, but I'm sure it'll be finishing his tour card at the end of the year. Very, very mature statement was released from him. I think it was released today or yesterday. My old pal Vincent Vanderburgh. You know, they all got to the latter stages, and then the qualifiers. Steve Beaton again, you know, loves to do it. Some people hate saying the words, but he does find he's evergreen. He finds a way to win. Beating Big Gabe in a bit of a shock. Joe Cullen beating Jesus. Harry Ward beating Chris Dobie, and then Vanderburgh beating Madars Rasmussen to all take their place in the World Series finals. The draw for me was fascinating, isn't it? I mean, with what's gone on, it's going to be very hard to. I mean, Dimitri's playing Glenn Durant for a chance to play Michael Van Gerwen, which is going to be mouthful, especially. I think Michael said recently that if he's anywhere as near his best, I don't think Glenn Durant gets anywhere near him. Fallon Sherrick against Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith's out of sorts at the moment. Ratajski against Mensa Silovic. Winner playing another player who's struggling at the moment in the Autumn Series, Michael Smith. Whitlock against Beaton, another one. That's a coin flip for me. Damon Heta, who won his first ranking title in recent days, up against Ian White. Cody Harris, another winner. Dave Chisnell. Vincent Vanderburgh against Joe Cullen, and Harry Ward making his debut against Darius Lapanowski. I mean, it's mouthful.
Yeah, some great games to look forward to, and some great games for the crowd that he's going to be there to look forward to. As you touched on, it's going to be the first PDC event to have a crowd for the best part of 6 months, and I know the following weekend there's going to be a crowd for the European Tour event. The following week or so, the World Grand Prix going to be played behind closed doors. How do you assess the situation at the moment with the PDC and what they've got to, kind of the hurdles they've got to jump through to get the crowds in again?
Yeah, I mean, financially they're taking a massive hit, but you know, Matchroom and Eddie, of course, you know, took that big hit by staging the boxing in the Maskell's House Garden. It's financially, fortunately, the PDC have done so well over the years, and you have to give them all credit. They could have just said, look, we're going to just, you know, maybe play some of the pro tours, but the bigger events were just going to shelve for the season, because obviously without the crowd, that's a massive part of why the PDC are in the financial situation they are in, and obviously the crowd for the World Series final is going to be massively reduced, so it will help a little bit, but not going to be, you know, it's not massive amounts of money like it normally would be in the Premier League, of course. You know, those were huge crowds, especially the double header over in Holland, and you know, there was I think there's almost 20,000 seats sold over 2 days. So yeah, you have to give them credit, and you know, that's why they've been so successful. You know, there's no way they could have made any kind of allowance for what's going on right now, but they stepped up to the plate, and all credit to them. They're just continuing to roll out these events. Yes, it's sad it's behind closed doors, but the fans get to see their favourite players on TV.
And I've got to get your take on what could perhaps happen to the PDC World Championship. Of course, the biggest event that we have on the calendar, still nothing confirmed. I know it's about 3 months away, but what do you see possibly happening to the World Championship? Do you see it staying at Ali Pali, or do you see it possibly going somewhere else where you can get a crowd in?
Yeah, I can't see them. I mean, the cost of putting it on at Ali Pali is astronomical. And although they've taken the hit on all the other events, I just can't see financially that event. What is it, 17 days of no crowds, and what people also got to make allowances for is the cost of all the testing. You know, bringing everybody in a few days before, all the hotel costs, all the, you know, everyone's got to be isolated until they pass their test, and then trying to keep everybody in a bubble. The reason it's worked so well at Milton Keynes is everything's under one roof, so they could keep everybody in that bubble. I'd be massively surprised if it stays at Ali Pali without a crowd. I just don't know how financially it's viable. You know, because you know all the broadcast rights and everything else are already in place, but I don't think that will cover the massive prize money. I know it's sponsored and everything else, but without a crowd, that's going to take a massive hit. And I just don't. I would rather see it go to another country just for this once, where they can have some crowd. Like I said, the World Series is going to have a crowd. Maybe they can pick another country that has slightly different rules to ours. Although a lot of things could change between now and then, of course. So, I'm still hopeful it stays at the Ali Pali. But if it doesn't, I'd personally be amazed. I hope it. Well, in a way, I hope it does. But I hope it doesn't. I'd love to see it with some form of crowd. But if it does go somewhere else for a year, then like I say, it's just one of those things, and at least someone will, some fans will be able to get out there and enjoy the World Championship, and of course, players will enjoy having a crowd.
Definitely. And one more before we let you go, and it's turning the thoughts away from the PDC and onto the BDO. They've been in trouble for a while now, as we know, but last week losing control of the counties to the newly formed UKDA. I know the BDO is where it all started for you and a lot of the players. What memories will stick with you most when you think of the BDO now?
Well, I suppose you can't have any memories really of recent years, because it's been a disaster for them and the players, and of course, you've got to feel sorry for all the players that played in last year's or this year's World Championship, that especially Wayne Warren, who ended up with a paltry 20-odd grand. But overall, I suppose if we go back to the glory years of the 80s, there was give people a certain group of players an opportunity to be professionals. Personally, I had some great times playing in the BDO, and proud to have represented my country. But sadly, in recent years, the whole brand's been tarnished. But fortunately, the WDF are coming in. They've recently announced their how they're going to, which events are going to be ranked, and a little bit of a look ahead to the future. The UKDA, that looks like they're going to try and refresh the county system. I mean, there is a place for county darts. I don't think there's enough Super League and county players to keep it with, over the weekend of 12 women and 24 men. I think maybe taking it down to a one-day event, making it really special against representing county. I remember making my debut in the A side. It's a really proud moment, where nowadays it's sort of most counties, not all, but most counties struggle to fill the allocated places, and sort of it's a case of, put a county shirt on and you get a game, and that needs to be made a little bit more special again, and hopefully that's what will happen in the future. There's lots of exciting things. Of course, Steve Brown's Mad Darts, that looks to be gathering some momentum now, and things are getting put in place, and amateur darts are always starting to look positive again, which is great, because not everybody can just rock up a Q school, get a tour card, and turn pro. It just doesn't work like that. You need a proving ground. You need somewhere to apply your trade, and you need to find out if you're ultimately good enough to turn pro. And going forward, WDF, and like I said, the UK Darts Association, and of course MAD, things are looking positive for amateur darts, which is great news for the sport, because ultimately it needs that. There is the development tour and the challenge tour, but again, that's not for everybody. So all bases look to be covered, and I'm excited about the future.
Definitely. Well, Chris, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you very much for taking out some time to have a chat with us, and wish you all the best for this weekend with ITV and the World Series finals.
Thanks a million, pal. Always a pleasure.
Thanks again to Chris for joining us. Now we'll finish up the show with some listener questions free to get through before we say goodbye this week. And the first one comes from Connor Ellis, who says, who do you think has improved the most since darts has returned?
I mean, there's a couple people we can say. Obviously, Damon Heta. I mean, we've known how good he was. That's why he won a televised event on the World. Actually, won 2 televised events last year. One in the BDO, and then the following week won a World Series event. But can't really say he's improved. He's just more experienced now and being able to handle the day in, day out of the PDC better. And that's why he was able to win his first ranking title. Also, one of the players I mentioned last week, Boris Kermsar, however you pronounce his last name, hadn't gotten the results in the PDC until this past week, but won quite a few matches, finished in the top 20-25 of the order of merit for this past week, starting to find his legs. He's a multiple soft tip world champion. But I'm going to surprise you by saying the player who was the most improved since darts has restarted is a player who's in the top 20 in the world, and that And it's not Dimitri Vandenberg. It's Simon Whitlock, who was really, really struggling at the end of last year and was starting to play a little better at times at the beginning of the year, but wasn't getting results, wasn't getting his timing right, wasn't getting over the line. But he's been very good over the past couple months. He did a fairly good job in the summer series to start to right his season and to give himself a little bit of momentum going into the World Match Play. And then he was much more consistent and upped his game even more during the autumn series, which is why he nearly got into the World Grand Prix from nowhere in contention at the start of the week. For a player who's been that high and to have struggled that much for so long, to be able to get it together when all the pressure was on was very impressive. And I think he's improved, not near where he was when he was one of the top 8 players in the world, but a lot better than he was a year ago when he was looking that he wasn't even a top 64 player. So I'm going to say since Darts started, it's Simon Whitlock.
There's certainly a few players that you can mention, and probably some players that maybe before the break they were playing well. So you think of the likes of Devin Peterson, who was playing some excellent stuff before the break, but he's come back after the 4 months and he's basically kicked on, hasn't he? He's very unlucky not to win a first PDC ranking title this week. Missed the 4-match starts against Gaal Price in one of the finals this week. Of course, he got over that disappointment today when we're recording on the Wednesday, the final day, by hitting a 9-darter on the stream. He's one of those players that is really performing at a top level. And again, I've got the Players' Championship averages for the year. Currently in 4th spot, you've got the top 3 in the world occupying those top 3 spots. 4th spot, you've got Devin Peterson. Not a bad spot to be at all, but I'll go with one of Devin's good friends on the tour, Joe Cullen. He spoke during the home tour that he was maybe his motivation was lacking a little bit and trying to rejuvenate himself a little bit. And you look at what he's been able to do in the summer series results wise wasn't the best, but you look at what he's been able to do in the autumn series over the last few days. Got to a final, put in some real top averages. I think 109 average to beat Daryl Gurney. It was 112 to beat Peter Wright, one of the games of the week, if you like, to beat Peter Wright. That was on the 4th event of the week. So he's not maybe doing it on as consistent a level as you'd expect, but he is putting in some top stuff. And of course, he came through that qualifier on the Friday, the tour card qualifier. He's one of the top ranked players in it. To still get through is an achievement in itself. So we're going to see him this weekend. I think there's certainly a few in there. And yeah, I agree with Simon Whitlock. And I think Devin Peterson's probably my one at the minute.
And another name we didn't mention, but made second rank final in Matos Razma. Forgot to throw him out there. Hadn't averaged over 97 before the break, but has had, I think, 9 matches over the 2 Pro Tour weeks since then where he's averaged over that. So has really upped his game as well. Next question comes from ZZ Quish, and it's, so far, do you like the change in Pro Tour format, which started in the Players' Championship events last year and in the European Tour events the year before, where the semifinals is best out of 13 and the finals is best at 15. ZZ Quish gives his thoughts, saying that he thinks it slightly benefits the top players, but then again, there's been plenty of surprise champions since the move.
I'm all for it, and I remember we spoke about this a couple of years ago when they brought it in for the European Tour, and the very first final we had on the European Tour, 1st to 8, it did go to a final leg, if I recall. I think that was a Van Gogh and Peter Wright final, so we were all for it then. And I suppose on the flip side, you can get to the end of a weekend, the end of a day, and one of the players can be absolutely drained and the other player just wipes the floor with him, and it cannot be a great spectacle. But by and large, really, I think it's been a positive move. And I remember when we spoke about it coming in for the Players' Championship events, we just felt like that sort of symmetry, if you like, getting to the latter stages, you up the leg count a little bit, makes it a little bit more prestigious, just makes it feel like more of an important event, if you like. You've got to go a little bit further to win the title, just a little bit more of a hurdle. But for me, I'm all for it, and there's going to be times when we're going to see some one-sided games and it will be a bit of a damp squib in the end, but there will be some times, and we'll be thanking ourselves for it then, that you get some games that get to 5-all and you think, oh no, it could be this is the last leg, but no, you've got 5 more legs to look forward to. And there's been some great finals, none more so than the Devin Peterson Gaal Price game for drama. I know Devin will probably hope that it was a 1st to 6 for that final, but great drama in that final, and that's what you get when you up the leg count and you've got to get a little bit further to win that title.
Yeah, or even throw in the summer series where his semifinal against Corinne Price, which went the distance 7-6, in one of the best matches we've ever seen on the Pro Tour. I like it. I think it's more fair. I think when you get to that stage of the tournament, have to go a little bit further, dig a little bit deeper, find a little bit more in order to get over the line. is worthwhile, and it's what the players should have to do. Yes, obviously an 8-1 match is not going to be fun, but neither is a 6-1 match. And there's not that much difference between a 6-1 and 8-1 match, other than that you just have to wait a couple extra minutes for someone to be crowned the champion. Obviously, there are some 6-1 matches that are players that come back from 5-1 down to win, but that's rare. You don't expect that whether you're playing to best out of 11 or best out of 15. The bad matches will be bad regardless, but the good matches and the great matches, you get even more of it. And I think to ask a champion to have to win an extra couple legs is worthwhile. I think the semifinals and finals should be like that. And as ZZ Quish points out, there have been some first-time winners going against the top names to get it done since this move. I don't think it has ended up benefiting the top players nearly as much as you might have thought it had. And it's made those players better players when they're having to play in TV events, which are longer, because they've had that experience. They've qualified for the TV events by winning a Pro Tour, having to play to 8 for the first time, and now they're ready in the World Match Play or the World Championships, where they have to go a little bit further, even in the first round.
Final question then for this week's show, and it comes from Winnieton McDade, one of our listeners from Western Australia, who says, who of the new 2020 tour card holders do you think will end up being the Rookie of the Year, and who do you think the public will want to see as Rookie of the Year?
I think there's only one person right now it can be, and that has to be Damon Heta. He came in as a rookie that had already won a televised PDC event, but he's been fantastic, especially this past week. But you have to think he's only going to get better from there. He's a world-class player, and while there might be other world-class players in this group, none of them compare to, or at least yet have done what he has done in the PDC. Sure, you look at who the first-year tour card holders, obviously Jeff Smith made a final, but he's not a rookie. He held a tour card before, 7-8 years ago. And some of the other rookies, like Lisa Ashton, who's now finding her feet, having her best week, finished 35th or 36th in the order of merit for the week. Obviously the best she has done now, winning her first board, but she came in as a 4-time world champion. Damon Heta hadn't played on a global tour before. Now he has, and he is in every aspect a rookie, and in every aspect the best of this Q School class. I think it has to be him.
Yeah, I'm not going to go too far away from that one, and that would be nice, actually. I know he spoke about maybe there being a Rookie of the Year, and perhaps that could be something that the PDC look to, maybe doing for the new tour card holders, and it is their first year on the tour, they haven't dropped off. Maybe that could be an award that they do, the players that are playing on the tour for the very first time, whoever did the best on that first year could be a trophy. But yeah, the player at the minute who we're looking at to potentially do that, Damon Heta, he's got to be one right up there. I'll give a few other mentions as well. You mentioned Jeff Smith, who's got to a final. Nick Kenny this week as well, a player that we know well, got to a semi-final this week. So I think he had a long losing streak as well. I think he lost something like 6 or 7 games in a row. So great to see him get a good run this week. Dirk van Duijvenbode as well. It seems a long time ago now, but back in February, March, getting to I think it was a semi-final on the first European tour. Martijn Kleermaker as well, another good friend of the show. He seems to be getting some good results and performing well at times. But if the fans were to pick it, I think it probably be, if it was a vote, I think it would probably come down to 2 players, and it would be Lisa Ashton. Of course, as you mentioned, had a great week, got to the last 16 and a last 32, putting in some big scalps as well. She had some tough draws, but I think it'd be between her. And you've got to give a shout out to Aaron Beanie as well, playing this week for the first time in his new shirts. Of course, signed up with Loxley Darts and got another win this week, and he's fast becoming one of the players that the fans just get behind. And okay, he's not the best player on the tour, but he's one of the players that we've had him on the show a couple of times now. That he's a great guy to chat to, very down to earth, and I think everyone, when they see him playing, they are rooting for him to do the best. And he's one of those players that is improving, and fingers crossed over the next 12-15 months we can see that progression continue for him.
Anything else for this week?
Just to say big thank you to our guests for joining us this week. Thanks to the 3 guys for joining us. Appreciate their time. We'll be back next week, of course, to look back at the World Series finals, talk about all that's gone on over the weekend, and look ahead to the European Tour coming back next weekend. And just to give you a heads up as well, we're going to be joined by the owner and head of PDC Europe, Werner von Malta. He's going to be joining us. We're going to be chatting to him on Thursday. So when you listen to this show, when it comes out on a Thursday, we'll be chatting to him today. So if you've got any questions, get in there quickly, because we're going to be chatting to him later today. But that interview will be out on our show next week. Of course, get your picks in on the Low 6 app if you want to get involved with that. And if you want to support us on our Patreon page as well, all the links on that on our Twitter as well. But yeah, thanks very much everyone for listening, and enjoy the darts this weekend.
Yes, indeed. Whether you'll be there in person, as something we haven't been able to say in a while, or you're watching on television or online like I will be. Hope you enjoy the World Series of Darts finals, and we'll be back next week to recap that, to look ahead to the second European Tour event. As you rightly said, it's a long time ago since the first one, but it'll be back next week. Let us know if there's anything you'd like us to discuss. Send your questions in, send your suggestions for guests in, and we'll be back next week. Until then, you'll just have to hang tight.